The broadcast began like any other emergency transmission, flashing across the networks of the Galactic Council and every allied world. At first, no one paid attention. Distress signals from human colonies were common in the border sectors. But within minutes, the sound filled every screen, every hall, every home across the stars. A human settlement, peaceful and thriving, was burning. Children screamed as alien mercenaries fired plasma into the sky. Buildings collapsed under the weight of explosions. The feed was uncut, unedited, and brutal. The mercenaries wore no insignia, but everyone knew who had sent them. It was the work of a council faction, one that had long demanded humanity's submission. The broadcast ended with a single image, a banner of the Galactic Council waving over the ruins of the human colony. The message was clear: obey or perish. The galaxy fell silent. For a few hours, it was just another political scandal. The Council claimed it was an accident, a misunderstanding, a rogue act. But humanity knew better. They recognized precision when they saw it. The colony had no military base, no weapons, no threat. It had been a farming world, a home to families, teachers, doctors, and children. The slaughter was not war. It was a message. Yet what the Council never expected was that the message would echo back in ways they could never control. Across the human worlds, every broadcast was hijacked. The footage played again and again on loop. The screams of dying families filled city streets and war rooms alike. And somewhere in the silence that followed, humanity changed. On Earth, billions gathered in the streets, watching the feed replay on massive holoscreens. No one spoke. The flames reflected in their eyes. There were no speeches, no rallies, no cries for peace. Only quiet fury. The silence was heavy enough to suffocate. In orbit, military officers stood before their commanders waiting for orders that never came. Everyone expected the Terran Council to demand an investigation, perhaps send diplomats, perhaps negotiate compensation. That was what the old humanity might have done. But the new humanity, the one forged through exile, betrayal, and survival, was done with words. When the Galactic Council finally reached out, their envoys came dressed in white, speaking softly of forgiveness and diplomatic resolution. Their message was hollow. They talked about trade, balance, and peace. But the moment the envoy's face appeared on the Terran broadcast, the response came instantly. It wasn't a debate or discussion. It was a sentence spoken by a single human admiral, her eyes cold as iron: "We don't negotiate with murderers." That was all. The transmission ended. And in that silence, the entire galaxy trembled. On every alien world, the reaction was the same: fear. The council chambers filled with shouts and panic. They refused peace. They will strike. They will destroy us all. But humanity didn't move. Their fleets didn't launch. Their ships didn't fire. They simply vanished from the trade lanes and disappeared from council communications. One by one, human colonies went dark, not destroyed, but silent. The council thought it was weakness, that the humans were withdrawing to grieve. But inside those dark systems, something far more dangerous was happening. In the underground war rooms of the Terran Union, the leaders gathered around the holographic map of the galaxy. The ruined colony blinked red in the center of the display. No one spoke for several minutes until the Supreme Admiral stepped forward. His voice was low and calm, but there was an edge to it, like a blade drawn slowly from its sheath. "They wanted to show us fear," he said. "Let's show them what fear really means." The room fell silent. Orders were transmitted in coded pulses. Fleets that had been hidden in deep space began to awaken. Factories that had been quiet since the exile roared back to life. Humanity had not forgotten how to build. They had not forgotten how to fight. They had simply been waiting. The next few days were eerily quiet. No response came from Earth, Mars, or any human world. The Council sent more envoys, each more desperate than the last. But their transmissions were ignored. The galaxy watched and waited, uncertain of what would happen next. And then, strange things began to occur. Entire mercenary fleets that had once served the Council stopped responding to signals. Outposts along the border reported seeing flashes of blue light in the void, followed by silence. No distress calls, no survivors, no wreckage, just empty space. The council tried to cover it up, but the rumors spread faster than light. The humans are coming, people whispered in fear. But humanity wasn't coming with rage or chaos. They moved with precision, quiet as the void. No declarations, no threats. Just action. They targeted no innocents, struck no civilians. Only the guilty vanished, the fleets, the generals, the corporations that had profited from the massacre. Every time one disappeared, a single message appeared on their communication logs: justice delivered. Meanwhile, in the council's capital, the speaker stood before the assembly, his voice shaking as he addressed the crowd. Humanity must be contained, he said. They are emotional, unstable, dangerous. But as he spoke, his hands trembled. Everyone in that chamber knew the truth. They had gone too far. The humans had given their answer, and there was no negotiation left. On the edge of the galaxy, in a secret command ship orbiting the destroyed colony, a lone human officer stood watching the ashes below. The smoke still rose from the ruins, black against the red horizon. She pressed a hand to the glass and whispered, "They thought this would break us. But all they did was remind us who we are." The stars reflected in her eyes like sparks of a coming storm. Behind her, the hum of engines grew louder as the fleet prepared to move. Across every human world, every soldier, every ship, every citizen waited for the same signal. The galaxy had made one terrible mistake. They had confused silence for surrender. Humanity was not defeated. They were patient. And when they finally struck back, it wouldn't be for revenge. It would be for justice. The broadcast that began as a warning to humanity had become something far more powerful. A warning from humanity. And every corner of the galaxy could feel it. Something had awakened. The age of mercy was over. The galaxy was quiet in the days following the broadcast. Too quiet. Trade routes once filled with freighters and passenger ships now drifted empty. News channels that had once mocked humanity for being too emotional now avoided even saying the word Earth. Across alien worlds, people whispered in fear. Something about the silence felt unnatural. No retaliation, no response, no speeches from human leaders, nothing but stillness. It was the kind of quiet that comes before a storm that no one can stop. The Galactic Council tried to maintain order, but their efforts looked desperate. Meetings were held in secret chambers, guarded by soldiers who pretended to be calm while their hands trembled on their weapons. In the grand chamber of the council, tension filled the air. The speaker stood tall on the platform, his silver robes glimmering under the lights. Around him, hundreds of alien delegates argued, their voices overlapping into chaos. "We must contain them," one shouted. "We can't afford another human war," cried another. "They are unpredictable. If they strike, no one will survive." The speaker slammed his staff against the floor, and the room fell into uneasy silence. "Enough," he said, his voice echoing through the hall. "Humanity is angry, yes, but they are still bound by reason. We will send envoys again. We will remind them that the Council keeps peace across the stars." His tone was calm, but his eyes betrayed doubt. The following day, a Council envoy was dispatched to the Terran border. It was a massive diplomatic ship, shining with gold and white banners, a symbol of unity. It carried dozens of diplomats, each trained to speak softly, to soothe, to bargain. The speaker's orders were simple: calm the humans before they act. But as the envoy entered Terran space, the crew noticed something strange. The beacons that once marked human trade routes were gone. Every human transmission frequency was silent. The stars themselves seemed darker here, as if the humans had somehow erased their presence from the galaxy. "Activate hailing channel," the envoy's captain said nervously. The signal echoed into the void. No reply. "Increase frequency range." Still nothing. "Try standard peace code." Silence. Then, without warning, the screens flickered. Static filled the ship's communication array, followed by a voice, calm, cold, and unmistakably human. "You were warned once," the voice said. "There will be no second time." The signal cut out. The crew stared at the dark screens, hearts pounding. Moments later, every system on the Envoy went offline. Power, weapons, even life support, all dead. The ship drifted helplessly through the void. As panic spread among the diplomats, a shadow passed over their viewport. A shape so vast it blocked the stars, a human warship. No markings, no lights, only a faint blue glow running along its surface. And then, without firing a single shot, it vanished into nothing. The Envoy's systems returned, but the message was clear. The humans were watching. When the Envoy limped back to Council space, the crew refused to speak. They looked haunted, their eyes empty. The Council tried to interrogate them, but all they said was the same 3 words: "They are waiting." The report spread through the political networks like wildfire. Worlds that had once laughed at humanity's defiance now sealed their borders, terrified of being next. Even the neutral planets, the ones who had never taken sides, began removing Council banners from their skies, afraid it would make them targets. The galaxy was losing faith, and the Council's power began to crack. Meanwhile, far from the core worlds, deep within the shadowed sectors of human territory, the Terran Union gathered its leaders. Beneath a black sky filled with storm clouds, the great hall of Haven burned with blue light. Hundreds of officers, scientists, and generals stood in silence as the Supreme Commander entered. He looked weary but unbroken, his uniform simple, his gaze sharp. "The Council thinks we will strike in rage," he said slowly. "They think we are blinded by anger. But rage is easy. Justice is harder. We will not destroy. We will remind them who they turned their backs on." His words spread through the crowd like fire. Every soldier straightened. Every scientist took a deep breath. Every colonist watching through holofeeds clenched their fists. Over the next few weeks, humanity began to move. Quietly. Efficiently. No public declarations. No official war. Research centers worked without rest, rebuilding ancient technology from the exile era. Ships that could warp across systems without detection. AI systems that could manipulate communication signals. Cloaking engines that could turn entire fleets invisible. Engineers who had once built cities now built warships. Miners who had once dug for or now forged weapons. Humanity was not preparing for revenge. They were preparing for inevitability. They knew the Council would never admit guilt, never face justice willingly. So humanity would force them to. Back in the Council chamber, panic turned to arrogance. "They are bluffing," said one general, his scales glittering under the lights. "Humans are emotional. They cannot sustain silence for long." The speaker hesitated. "And what if it's not a bluff?" The general sneered. "Then we crush them before they move." Plans were drawn for a preventive strike on key human colonies. Fleets began to gather near Terran borders, the same fleets that had destroyed the colony weeks before. But what the Council didn't know was that every one of their movements was being watched. Terran sensors, hidden deep within asteroids, tracked every ship, every broadcast, every word. Humanity already knew what was coming. When the first Council fleet crossed into Terran space, the human response was immediate, but not violent. As the alien ships advanced, their systems began to malfunction. Engines froze mid-burn. Targeting computers showed phantom readings. Communication arrays looped endlessly. Then, across every ship, a single image appeared on their screens. A field of stars and, in the center, the face of a human officer, calm and expressionless. "We told you," she said. "We don't negotiate with murderers." The image vanished. Seconds later, every Council ship was pushed back by an invisible force, a gravity field so strong that it hurled them out of Terran space without a single shot fired. When the survivors reported back, they were pale and shaking. The speaker listened, his hands cold. "They didn't attack us," one captain whispered. "They let us live, to warn you." That sentence spread faster than the speed of light. Across the galaxy, every race that once feared humanity now began to question the Council's rule. Whispers grew into rumors, rumors into panic. What kind of power could force fleets out of space without a fight? What kind of people would show mercy to their enemies? On Earth, the Supreme Commander stood before the stars, watching the silent fleets of humanity form across the darkness. The Council thinks we are still human, he murmured. They haven't realized yet. We've become something more. Behind him, the stars flickered with faint blue light, the reflection of countless Terran ships waiting for the next command. The galaxy had wanted peace, but peace built on blood was an illusion. Humanity would show them what real peace looked like, the kind built on truth, justice, and the memory of fire. The Council had wanted to frighten them into submission. Instead, they had awakened something the galaxy could never put back to sleep. Far beyond the borders of Council space, the human world of Haven glowed faintly beneath a shroud of mist. From orbit, it looked lifeless, a barren, gray sphere hidden from scanners by advanced cloaking fields. But beneath its surface, deep in the labyrinthine tunnels and luminous caverns, humanity thrived. Cities built of metal and light stretched for miles underground. Massive generators pulsed with steady blue energy. The hum of engines and machinery echoed constantly, like the heartbeat of a civilization reborn. Haven was more than a world. It was the heart of the Terran Union, the empire forged from exile, silence, and resolve. In one of the great domes known as the Assembly Hall, thousands of delegates gathered for the first full session of the Union since the massacre. The room was vast and circular, its ceiling a transparent dome through which the faint outlines of orbiting warships could be seen. Soldiers, scientists, politicians, and colonists sat side by side. At the center stood Supreme Commander Elias Ward, tall and steady, his presence commanding even in silence. His gray uniform bore no medals, no decoration, only a small white circle surrounding a blue flame, the symbol of humanity's unity. When he raised his hand, the room went completely still. "The galaxy is watching us," Ward began, his voice calm but heavy with purpose. "They expect anger. They expect chaos. They think we will scream and destroy. But we will not give them that satisfaction." His words rolled through the chamber, measured and deliberate. "They called us emotional, reckless, dangerous. And yet, they are the ones who slaughtered children and called it justice. They are the ones who burn and lie. We are not them. We are what they fear, a race that remembers." The crowd erupted in applause, but Ward raised his hand again, silencing them. "Our silence was not surrender. It was preparation. Our grief was not weakness. It was transformation. And now, the Council will learn that the humans they exiled are not the same ones they tried to destroy. We will not seek revenge. We will seek balance. They took from us what cannot be replaced. But what we build next will outlast their entire empire." His words were met with a roar of approval that shook the dome. At the far end of the hall, Dr. Ilara Niven watched quietly. Her lab coat was smudged with dust, her eyes tired from days of work, but her mind was alive with possibilities. As one of humanity's leading scientists, she had seen what the Terran Union was building in the shadows. She whispered softly to the officer beside her, "They think we've built ships for war, but what we're building is far greater. We're building a future where no one can ever do this to us again." The officer nodded. "And if they try?" Ilara's eyes hardened. "Then the galaxy will remember this day as the day humanity stopped asking for permission." Hours later, in the War Command chamber deep beneath Haven's surface, the highest-ranking officers of the Terran Union gathered. The room was dimly lit, dominated by a massive holographic projection of the galaxy. Red zones marked the territories under Council control. Blue lines traced secret Terran operations. "Our scouts have confirmed increased Council fleet activity along the border," said Admiral Selin, a woman with sharp features and eyes like ice. "They're regrouping after the failed incursion, but they're still sending probes into our sectors." Ward studied the hologram silently, then spoke. "And how many have returned?" Selin hesitated. "None." A faint murmur spread through the officers. Everyone in the room knew what that meant. The Council was poking a sleeping giant, and the giant was beginning to stir. Ward leaned forward. "Continue the silent blockade. No transmissions, no warnings. Let them think we've vanished. When they realize we haven't, it will already be too late. Across the galaxy, human activity surged in secret. Fleets were rebuilt in asteroid fields, camouflaged by electromagnetic interference. Entire planets devoted themselves to shipbuilding, transforming moons into industrial fortresses. The Aegis project, led by Dr. Niven herself, created a new generation of human warships, faster, smarter, nearly invisible. Their hulls could absorb energy weapons. Their engines left no trails. These ships were not designed for war as the Council understood it. They were designed for domination through precision, able to end battles before they began. While humanity prepared, whispers spread among alien civilizations. Stories told of human ships appearing out of nowhere, disabling pirate fleets and vanishing just as quickly. Refugees from border systems told tales of Terran soldiers freeing enslaved worlds without asking for tribute or reward. They don't kill, one alien miner said in awe. They just appear, destroy the chains, and disappear again. Another added, they're like ghosts. They don't conquer, they correct. The Council tried to suppress these stories, but they spread faster than light. For every world that feared humanity, another began to admire them. Some even began to defect, offering intelligence and supplies to Terran forces in secret. The Speaker of the Council raged in his private chambers. They are poisoning our image, he hissed. They turn our own people against us. But his advisors could only look at the flaw. The truth was undeniable. The Council's authority was fading, and humanity's legend was growing. On Haven, Dr. Niven stood before a massive glass viewport, watching as the first completed fleet of Aegis warships rose from the shipyards. Their blue lights shimmered like distant stars, moving in perfect formation. Commander Ward stepped beside her. You've given us something extraordinary, Doctor, he said quietly. Ilara smiled faintly. I only gave shape to what was already there. Humanity doesn't need miracles, Commander. We just need time. And we finally have it. Ward nodded, his expression unreadable. Time and purpose, he said. That's all we ever needed. Later that night, a coded transmission reached the Terran command. It was intercepted from within the Council's Central Fleet network, a secret order calling for Operation Final Dawn. The order was simple: erase all remaining human presence from the galaxy. Ward read the message twice before speaking. They never learn, he murmured. They still think we'll beg for mercy. He turned to Admiral Selin. It's time. Begin Operation Silent Storm. Within hours, fleets across the Terran Union came to life. Engines roared. Shadows moved through the void. One by one, human warships vanished into folded space, leaving no trace. Their targets were not cities or civilians. They were the war factories, the command stations, the strongholds of those who had ordered the massacre. In the depths of the night, the galaxy began to tremble once more. Not from explosions or screams, but from the quiet realization spreading across billions of worlds. Humanity was no longer a race to be controlled, pitted, or feared. They were a force beyond definition, a storm of light and silence, justice and precision. And as the first alien command stations vanished without a trace, the message that had started it all echoed again across the stars. We don't negotiate with murderers. On the edge of known space, Commander Ward stood aboard the flagship Eclipse, watching the stars blur as his fleet entered slipspace. They wanted to remind us who held power, he said softly. Now we'll remind them who we are. The bridge lights dimmed as the ships accelerated into the void. The galaxy had drawn first blood, but humanity would deliver the final lesson, not through destruction, but through the kind of justice that would echo for centuries. The Galactic Council's core world, Solith Prime, shimmered beneath the glow of 3 suns, its golden towers and sky bridges once symbols of unity and order. But now, that brilliance only hid the rot beneath. Every corridor of power was filled with whispers. Every delegate who once spoke proudly now avoided the word human. The silence was thick, suffocating, and full of fear. Across the Council's communication network, encrypted reports poured in from the outer systems. Fleets missing. Colonies abandoned. Outposts cut off from contact. It wasn't war. It was something worse, control through invisibility. Humanity was not attacking. They were erasing. In the Council's Grand Chamber, chaos had become routine. Hundreds of alien delegates shouted over one another, their words a blur of fear and confusion. They've taken Sector 12. Our patrols don't return. We can't track their movements. The speaker sat at the center, trying to maintain composure as the sound of panic swelled around him. Order, he demanded, slamming his staff against the floor. The echoes of the blow died quickly, swallowed by tension. You are overreacting, he said, forcing calm into his tone. These are isolated incidents. Humanity does not have the strength to threaten us directly. But even as he spoke, the chamber doors slid open, and a trembling officer stumbled in. Speaker, the alien gasped, his uniform torn and eyes wide with terror. They are here. The entire chamber froze. Where? The speaker asked slowly. The officer's voice cracked. Everywhere. Our border fleets, our outer colonies, they're gone. No battles, no distress signals. They just vanished. The speaker felt his throat tighten. Impossible, he said. No species could do that. The officer met his gaze. They already have. Hours later, in the Council's private command room, the top generals and intelligence officers gathered. Holograms flickered across the table, showing dozens of systems blinking offline one after another. They're using stealth fields, said an admiral with scaled skin and dark red eyes. But we've never seen cloaking of this level before. It's beyond anything in our records. Another officer shook her head. It's not just stealth. It's precision. They strike the moment our defenses weaken. Every hit is calculated. The speaker stared at the growing map of lost territories. They don't want our planets, he murmured. They want our control. For the first time in its history, the Galactic Council felt powerless. They had fought wars before, rebellions, invasions, revolutions, but never like this. Humanity wasn't fighting for expansion or conquest. They were dismantling the Council's foundation, its lies, its illusion of power. The Council ordered the creation of Project Dawnshield, an emergency fleet designed to counter the human threat. Thousands of ships were commissioned, built in secret dockyards across the core worlds. But before the project could even launch, the dockyards went dark. Every ship vanished, every worker disappeared, every file deleted. When investigators arrived, they found no wreckage, only a single phrase carved into the metal walls, "Justice delivered." Panic spread across the galaxy like wildfire. News networks broadcast conflicting stories. Some claimed the humans were demons returned from extinction. Others said they were saviors, purging corruption. Riots broke out on Council-aligned worlds as citizens demanded answers. On frontier planets, entire populations tore down the Council's banners and raised white flags, hoping to surrender to the unseen Terran forces. The Council tried to suppress the chaos, but the truth had already escaped them. For centuries, they had painted humanity as reckless and dangerous, but now the galaxy saw the truth. The humans were not destroyers. They were judges. In the shadows of Haven, humanity watched it all unfold. Deep within the Terran Union's command chamber, Commander Elias Ward stood before a panoramic display showing the collapse of Council systems. Behind him, Dr. Alara Niven monitored data streams from captured communication networks. "They are starting to fight among themselves," she said. "The more they fear us, the more they turn on each other." Ward nodded slowly. "Good. Let them weaken themselves. We only strike when necessary." He turned to Admiral Selin. "Status of Operation Silent Storm." Selin smiled faintly. "Complete. Their outer fleets are crippled, their supply lines disrupted. They have no idea how deep we've infiltrated." Ward's gaze lingered on the glowing blue map of Terran-controlled space. It had expanded quietly, stretching like roots through the dark. "We're not here to rule them," he said. "We're here to make them remember that peace built on murder cannot last." Later that night, a secret meeting was held in the Council's lower archives, a place few had entered in centuries. The speaker stood among ancient records of galactic law, surrounded by a handful of trusted aides. "We built our order on stability," one advisor said nervously. "If we admit fault now, everything collapses." The speaker turned sharply. "It's already collapsing," he snapped. "Do you not see? They're not fighting us, they're showing the galaxy our hypocrisy. They don't need to destroy us. Our own lies are doing it for them." He sank into silence, staring at the ancient banners that once represented justice and unity. "Perhaps," he said softly, "we were the monsters all along." Meanwhile, on a mining world far from the Council's reach, a miracle occurred. Human ships appeared above the planet, not to conquer, but to help. The workers, enslaved by corrupt Council officials, expected annihilation. Instead, the ships descended quietly. Terran soldiers walked among the miners, freed them from their chains, and left behind supplies and medicine. Then, as suddenly as they arrived, they vanished into the stars. The miners gathered around the empty sky in awe. One of them whispered, "They didn't take anything. Not even food. Just left freedom behind." That story spread like lightning. The humans were no longer the villains. They were the legends the galaxy needed. Back on Solith Prime, the Council's panic turned to desperation. A final order was issued, to make contact with the Terran Union directly. The speaker himself would lead the attempt. He sent a transmission deep into the void, his voice shaking. "To the leaders of humanity," he said, "we request peace. Let us negotiate. Let us end this." For a long time, there was no reply. Then, across every screen in the chamber, a human face appeared, Admiral Selin. Her expression was calm, her voice steady. "We told you once," she said, "and you didn't listen. There will be no negotiation. There will be truth." The transmission ended, leaving the chamber in stunned silence. The speaker stared at the dark screen, realizing too late that the humans were not acting out of rage. They were acting out of principle. They had become the mirror the Council could not bear to face. In the vast darkness beyond, the Terran fleet moved like a living storm. Thousands of ships cut silently through the void, their engines glowing faintly blue. They did not destroy worlds. They dismantled systems of oppression. One by one, the galaxy's corrupted powers fell. Humanity had refused to negotiate with murderers, and in doing so, they had become something greater than conquerors. They had become the conscience of the stars. On the bridge of the flagship Eclipse, Commander Ward stood alone, watching Solith Prime from afar. "They called us dangerous," he whispered. "They were right, but not in the way they feared." Behind him, the fleet drifted in perfect silence, waiting for his word. Ward turned toward the stars, his expression calm and cold. "The time for judgment has come." The order went out, and the darkness moved once more. The galaxy would soon learn that the fire humanity carried was not born of hate, but of justice that would burn until every shadow of corruption was gone. The sun over Solith Prime rose blood-red the morning humanity arrived. No sirens blared, no fleets gathered to defend the skies. There were simply too many human ships, so vast and numerous that they blotted out the light. From the planet's surface, the clouds shimmered with streaks of blue fire as Terran warships drifted into low orbit, silent as ghosts. To the citizens below, they looked less like machines and more like judgment itself descending from the heavens. The galaxy had expected thunder and destruction, but what came instead was silence, and silence was far more terrifying. In the Council's high tower, the speaker stood before a massive glass window, his reflection small against the endless wall of human ships. His aides huddled behind him, their voices shaking. "We have to open communications," one pleaded. "Perhaps they'll listen now." The speaker turned slowly, his face pale. "They told us they don't negotiate," he whispered. "What do you think they're here for now?" But despite the fear gnawing at him, he activated the broadcast channel. His voice, meant to be strong, trembled as it carried across the void. "To the Terran Union," he began, "this is the Galactic Council speaker. We acknowledge your strength. Let us find peace, before this ends in ruin." His words were carried into the cold dark. The reply came almost instantly. A holographic projection filled the chamber, flickering to life in the air. Commander Elias Ward appeared, standing aboard his flagship Eclipse. His eyes were steady, unblinking. "Peace," he repeated softly. "You burned our colonies, slaughtered our children, and silenced our dead beneath your lies. You want peace now because you've run out of places to hide." The speaker swallowed hard, forcing courage into his voice. "We admit our mistakes. We cannot undo the past. But endless war will destroy us all." Ward's expression didn't change. "War is what you gave us," he said. "But you're mistaken if you think this is war. What's coming isn't vengeance, it's consequence." The hologram faded, leaving only the echo of his final words. Across Solith Prime, the first wave of human dropships began to descend. But they didn't fire. They didn't bomb. Instead, they released small, glowing drones that spread across the cities like fireflies, shutting down communication towers, disabling weapons, cutting power to government strongholds. No explosions, no deaths, just sudden, total control. In a matter of hours, the proud capital of the Galactic Council was paralyzed without a single casualty. The streets were filled with frightened civilians watching as silent Terran soldiers marched past, their armor reflecting the red sunrise. They carried no flags, no slogans, only discipline. In the Grand Chamber, panic erupted. The Council's security forces tried to raise shields around the building, but their systems flickered and died. Every defense network went dark, overridden by an unknown signal. A deep hum filled the air as a massive Terran transport hovered above the chamber dome. The roof panels peeled open like petals, revealing the shadow of a descending shuttle. It landed softly on the chamber floor, and the door slid open. From within stepped Commander Ward himself, flanked by his guards. The council members recoiled instinctively. The speaker took a step forward, his voice trembling. "Commander Ward, what will you do with us?" Ward looked around the chamber, his eyes scanning every terrified face. "What we always do," he said quietly, "hold you accountable." He walked to the center of the floor and gestured to his officers. A small device was placed on the ground, a simple projector that emitted a beam of blue light. The light spread upward, forming a massive hologram in the air. The room gasped as they saw the images, recordings pulled from the Council's own archives. Orders signed by Council generals authorizing the massacre. Footage of mercenaries receiving payment. Messages where Council officials called the attack necessary for galactic control. Every lie, every secret, every crime was laid bare before them. The speaker staggered back, eyes wide with horror. "You hacked our records," he whispered. Ward shook his head. "No, we didn't need to hack them. Your victims kept the proof for us." Around the chamber, alien delegates broke into shouts. Some demanded explanations, others turned on their own allies. Fists pounded tables, voices screamed betrayal. Ward let them rage. Then, when the noise reached its peak, he raised his hand, and the entire room fell silent. "This is the truth you hid for decades," he said coldly. "This is why your empires crumble. You thought justice was a tool for control. You forgot it has a price." The speaker's knees gave out. "If you destroy us," he whispered, "you'll become what we were." Ward's gaze softened, but only slightly. "No," he said, "because we remember what you forgot, mercy." He turned to his soldiers. "Stand down. Arrest no one. The galaxy will judge them." The Terran troops obeyed, stepping back to the edges of the room. Ward looked at the speaker one last time. "Your council is finished. You will face the truth you built this empire on. And when you fall, we will rebuild, not on fear, but on memory." The humans withdrew as quietly as they came. Their ships lifted from the surface and vanished into the void. The Council's communication networks were restored, but not to them. Across the galaxy, every citizen received the same transmission, the recordings of the Council's crimes, broadcast to every corner of known space. The truth spread like wildfire. In hours, revolts began. On world after world, banners of rebellion rose. The very species the Council had ruled through fear now turned against them. No one wanted to fight humanity. Everyone wanted to be free. Back aboard the Eclipse, Ward watched the chaos unfold across the star maps. Admiral Selin approached him, her voice low. The Council is breaking apart. Their fleets are surrendering. What are your orders? Ward looked out at the stars. No pursuit. Let them fall under their own weight. Selin hesitated. And when they're gone? Ward's answer came quietly. Then we begin rebuilding the galaxy they destroyed. On Haven, Dr. Alara Niven stood before the glowing Unity core, a device she had spent years designing. It pulsed with soft blue light, its energy spreading across Terran space. It wasn't a weapon, it was a network, a bridge linking worlds, minds, and people. It would allow communication across the stars without manipulation or censorship. This will be our foundation, she said softly. No more lies. No more isolation. She looked up at the fleet reports scrolling across her screen and smiled faintly. They thought fear would divide us. But it united us instead. Meanwhile, on Solith Prime, the speaker sat alone in the ruins of the council chamber. The delegates had fled. The banners had fallen. Outside, the people were rising, chanting for justice, for freedom, for the future. He looked up at the shattered glass dome above him, where faint blue trails of Terran ships glimmered against the sky. We feared them because they were human, he whispered to himself. We should have feared them because they remembered what it meant to be. Far above, the Terran fleet reformed in orbit, a sea of quiet power. The humans did not claim Solith Prime, nor did they occupy it. They simply watched as the old order crumbled beneath its own corruption. Humanity had no need for conquest. They had achieved something far greater, the moral gravity of truth. Across the stars, the Council's empire was finished, and in its place, the legend of humanity began to rise. And as the eclipse turned toward the void, Commander Ward gave his final command for the day: stand down the fleets. Justice has been served. The collapse of the Galactic Council sent shockwaves through the stars. Worlds that had once knelt before the speaker's commands now stood in open rebellion. Old banners of authority burned in city squares as citizens, alien and human alike, rose against the remnants of the old order. What the Council had ruled through fear for centuries was now ruled by truth, and the truth had a name: humanity. The Terran Union's fleets drifted silently across space, not as conquerors but as watchers, ensuring the chaos did not turn into another tyranny. The galaxy, for the first time in its long history, was free from the illusion of peace, but it was also lost in uncertainty. On the hidden world of Haven, the heart of the Terran Union pulsed with light and life. Massive halls echoed with the footsteps of soldiers and scientists, working side by side to stabilize the fractured galaxy. Humanity's fleet had returned home, their ships lined across orbit like guardians of a new dawn. Commander Elias Ward stood on a viewing platform, overlooking the vast shipyards where damaged vessels were being repaired. The stars beyond shimmered with faint movement, the remains of Council fleets retreating into the dark. Admiral Selin approached, her boots echoing softly. They are running, she said. Every surviving Council faction has scattered. Some are forming pirate states, others are surrendering to local revolts. Ward didn't look away from the stars. Let them run, he said quietly. The galaxy will deal with them in time. We are not their hunters. We are their reminder. In the command hall below, Dr. Alara Niven worked tirelessly on the Unity core, her greatest creation. The device was more than technology. It was the foundation for a new kind of civilization. By linking worlds through quantum communication, it allowed instant, transparent dialogue between all species. No secrets, no censorship, no manipulation. We built weapons to defend ourselves, she told her team, but this will defend the galaxy from itself. Her hands trembled as she placed the final stabilizer into the glowing core. We were exiled once because they feared our voices. Now we'll make sure no voice is ever silenced again. The room erupted in quiet applause, but Alara only smiled faintly. She knew that what she was building would either unite the galaxy or destroy it if used wrongly. Meanwhile, the remnants of the council gathered in secret across the edges of known space. On a dying moon, beneath the ruins of an old fortress, the former speaker met with what was left of his allies. His once grand robes were torn and dirty, his eyes sunken. "We cannot let the humans take everything," one of the surviving generals hissed. "They will rewrite history, and we will be remembered as monsters." The speaker sighed heavily. "Perhaps that is what we are." The others glared at him, but he continued. "We built our peace on lies. We killed the innocent to protect our illusion of control. And now the truth has come for us. There is no saving what we were." The general slammed his fist against the table. "Then what do we do? Surrender?" The speaker looked up slowly, his gaze distant. "No. We face them one last time. But not with weapons, with confession." Days later, a transmission spread across every network in the galaxy. The speaker's face appeared, worn and defeated. Behind him stood the ruins of the council's hall. "To the people of the galaxy," he said softly, "I was once your voice. I ruled in the name of peace. And for that peace, I allowed the slaughter of millions. I watched worlds burn. I silenced those who spoke the truth. Humanity was right to refuse us." The transmission played for only 2 minutes, but it changed everything. Billions watched in stunned silence. When it ended, the speaker deactivated the recording and looked up at the sky. The human ships were already there, watching silently. He nodded once, as if accepting judgment, and whispered, "Perhaps they were the better guardians all along." The fleet above did not fire. They simply turned away and vanished into the stars. On Haven, Commander Ward received the report in silence. "He confessed," Admiral Selin said. Ward nodded. It was the only thing left for him to do. He turned toward the viewing glass where the Unity Core's first light spread across the sky, visible even from orbit. It shimmered like a heartbeat, sending its signal to the farthest edges of the galaxy. "This is it," Ilara said as she entered the command room. "The core is active. Every world is connected. No lies, no secrets. They'll all see each other now, as they truly are." Ward's voice was soft but steady. "That's the power they feared most, Doctor. Not our weapons. Not our armies. Our truth." The Unity Core began to reshape the galaxy overnight. Planets once divided by centuries of hatred could now communicate directly, bypassing corrupt mediators and political manipulation. Species that had never spoken before discovered common ground. For the first time, information flowed freely across billions of minds. The result was chaotic, emotional, and imperfect, but it was honest. And honesty, humanity believed, was the only foundation for lasting peace. But not everyone saw it that way. In the shadows of the Outer Rim, the remnants of the old regime, council loyalists, warlords, and rogue generals, gathered their strength. They watched humanity's growing influence with resentment. "They claim to bring peace," one commander snarled, "but all they've done is make the galaxy kneel." His advisor shook his head. "No one kneels to them. They simply listen." The commander sneered. "And that's worse." Plans began to form, plans for sabotage, rebellion, and revenge. Humanity's light had cast new shadows, and those shadows were beginning to stir. On Haven, Ilara noticed fluctuations in the Unity Core's readings. "Something's wrong," she murmured. "There are distortions coming from the outer sectors." Ward joined her at the console. "Is it interference?" She shook her head. "No. Someone's trying to corrupt the network." Ward's eyes narrowed. "Then the Council's ghosts still breathe." He straightened, his voice resolute. "Prepare the fleets. We may have ended a war, but peace always attracts those who profit from chaos." That night, standing on the observation deck, Ward looked out at the stars. The galaxy was vast, beautiful, and fragile. "They'll come for us again," he said quietly. "They always do." Ilara joined him, her reflection shimmering beside his in the glass. "Then we'll be ready," she said. "This time, we have something they'll never understand." "And what's that?" he asked. She smiled faintly. A conscience. Outside, thousands of human ships powered up, their engines glowing faint blue against the void. They did not prepare for conquest. They prepared to protect what they had built. The Council's age of deception was over, but the age of humanity had only begun. The galaxy would remember their warning, their mercy, and their justice. As the fleets spread across the heavens, the humans transmitted one final message across the Unity Core's network, a message that reached every living being in the galaxy. It was simple, calm, and undeniable. We are humanity. We don't rule, we guide. We don't conquer, we defend. And we will never again negotiate with murderers. In the silence that followed, the stars seemed to burn a little brighter, as if the universe itself was listening. The era of the Council was gone, and in its place, a new light rose, humanity's light, born not from power, but from the unshakable will to do what was right, no matter how many times the galaxy tried to break them. The new dawn of the galaxy was painted in shades of light and silence. Where the Galactic Council's authority had once stood tall, there now stretched a vast and uncertain peace. The Unity Core pulsed softly in orbit above Haven, its radiance visible even from the surface, a beacon of what humanity had built from ashes. Through it, billions of voices connected freely, and every world could speak its truth without fear of censorship or manipulation. But peace is fragile, and the galaxy had not yet learned how to live without fear. For every world that embraced the new order, another whispered that humanity's rise had simply replaced one empire with another. And in the void, those whispers began to take shape. Commander Elias Ward knew it. He stood in the central observatory of Haven's command citadel, hands clasped behind his back as the stars spread endlessly before him. Below him, engineers worked on the Unity fleet, the next generation of human ships designed not for war, but for defense. The sound of engines, distant yet constant, filled the air with a hum that felt like the heartbeat of humanity itself. Ward's face was calm, but his eyes were sharp. He had seen too much peace turn into complacency before. Behind him, Admiral Selin approached quietly. "The outer sectors are reporting interference again," she said. "Someone's trying to infiltrate the Unity Core from beyond mapped space." Ward didn't turn. "Do we know who?" Selin hesitated. "Not yet, but the signal pattern matches pre-war Council encryption." The name alone made the room seem colder. The Council, destroyed, scattered, disgraced, still had remnants hiding in the shadows. Ward finally turned, his voice steady but firm. "Send recon units. If it's them, I want to know how deep this infection runs." Selin nodded and left, but her face betrayed concern. She knew what Ward didn't say aloud. If the remnants of the Council were back, they would not come as soldiers. They would come as liars. Meanwhile, deep in the outer rim, far beyond the range of the Unity Core's light, something stirred. In a hollowed asteroid cloaked by gravitational distortions, a fleet of ships gathered, rusted, mismatched, carrying markings from 100 lost worlds. At their center floated a single massive vessel, a relic of the Council's military power. Inside, the surviving Council general, a cold-eyed reptilian named Vor, addressed his followers. "Humanity thinks they've won," he hissed. "They believe they've brought peace. But peace under their hand is no peace at all. They spread their core across the stars, connecting every world to their influence. They control what we hear, what we see, what we believe. Tell me, how is that different from what the Council once was?" Murmurs of agreement rippled through the gathered captains. "They call themselves saviors," Vor continued, "but they are conquerors who wear the mask of righteousness. We will tear that mask away." Their plan was simple: to corrupt the Unity Core. A single viral code injected into the network could twist humanity's greatest symbol of hope into a weapon of chaos, turning connected worlds against each other. They didn't need fleets or armies. All they needed was one spark of mistrust, and the galaxy would burn itself. Back on Haven, Dr. Alara Niven sat in the Core's control room, reviewing data streams flowing from thousands of systems. She noticed something strange: tiny anomalies spreading through the network like ripples in calm water. "That's not random," she murmured, zooming in on the code. "It's deliberate. She tapped into the security feed, tracing the signal's source. It led to a point far outside their established boundaries, a void zone once labeled Dead Sector 19, a graveyard of ships and broken satellites. Her stomach tightened. "Commander Ward," she said through the comm link, "I've found something. And you're not going to like it." Within hours, the Terran flagship Eclipse launched from orbit, its engines cutting through space like silent lightning. At its helm, Ward stared at the navigation display. "Set course for Dead Sector 19, he ordered. "No escorts. No transmissions. If this is a trap, we're not giving them a target." The crew obeyed, and the ship vanished into the folds of hyperspace. The journey took days, but when the ship emerged, the sight before them was haunting. A field of shattered Council vessels drifting like ghosts through the dark. "This was where their last fleet died," Selen said quietly. "Then why are we getting signals from it?" Ward replied. As the Eclipse moved deeper into the wreckage, sensors picked up faint life signs. "Impossible," Ilara said. "No one could have survived here for years." But then, a voice echoed through the ship's comm system, a voice that froze everyone on the bridge. "Commander Ward," it said, low and calm. "You've come far, as I knew you would." The screen flickered, revealing General Vor's face. His eyes burned with hatred. "Do you truly believe the galaxy loves you? They fear you, just as they feared us. You've become what you despised." Ward's expression didn't change. "You speak like a ghost who can't accept his dead." Vor laughed, a cold, hollow sound. "We may have fallen, but we've left seeds everywhere. Even now, your core carries our mark. The galaxy will choke on your unity." Before Ward could respond, alarms blared. Ilara shouted from her console. "He's right. They've infected the core, code replication spreading through every channel." Ward's voice cut through the noise. "Cut the connection. Lock them out." "It's too deep," she cried. "They built the virus inside their old encryption. It's rewriting the core's control base." Ward's eyes hardened. "Then we rewrite it back." The Eclipse's lights dimmed as power was rerouted to the core link. Across the galaxy, screens flickered, networks faltered, and worlds connected to the Unity core trembled as the system fought for its life. In Haven skies, the great core itself flared dangerously bright, its glow pulsing like a heart under attack. Inside its control chamber, Ilara and her team worked feverishly, coding line after line to isolate the infection. "They are trying to turn the core against us," she said. "If they succeed, they can use it to spread lies, fear, everything we fought to end." Ward's voice came over the comm, calm despite the chaos. "Then we give them the one thing they'll never understand, truth." He accessed the core manually from the Eclipse's systems and began transmitting data, real data. Unfiltered communications, proof of every Council crime, every atrocity, every human act of mercy and sacrifice since the exile. Across the galaxy, every world saw it. Images of Terran soldiers rebuilding alien homes. Fleets rescuing refugees. Medical ships saving the sick from forgotten worlds. The truth flooded the network, washing over the Council's virus like light burning through fog. The false code was overwritten not with fire or destruction, but with proof. Humanity's truth became the cure. When the system stabilized, the core's glow softened again. The infection was gone. Across the galaxy, billions watched the transmission in stunned silence. The Council's lies were gone forever. In the wreckage field, the Eclipse located Vor's ship. Ward opened a channel. "It's over," he said simply. Vor's face appeared, pale and trembling. "You can't stop what's coming," he hissed. "The galaxy will always need someone to blame." Ward's expression was unreadable. "Then they can blame us," he said. "As long as they stay free." Before Vor could respond, his ship detonated, a silent burst of light swallowed by the void. Hours later, the Eclipse returned to Haven. The Unity core pulsed brighter than ever, its blue light filling the skies. Humanity had won, not by erasing enemies, but by proving that truth was stronger than fear. As Ward stood before the shining core, Ilara joined him. You could have destroyed them all, she said softly. Why didn't you? Ward looked up at the light. Because if we destroy every monster we meet, someday we'll become the last one standing. The galaxy was quiet again, but not empty. From that day forward, every world remembered not just the warning that humans had given, but the example they had set. They refused to negotiate with murderers, but they had taught the galaxy what real justice looked like. And in that fragile peace, under the watchful glow of the Unity Core, humanity finally became what it was always meant to be, the guardians of conscience in a universe that had forgotten its own.